Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Brooke Steinhauser. I'm Senior Director of Programs at the Emily Dickinson Museum, and I'm overjoyed to be welcoming you here on the fourth day of our 2025 Tell It Slant Poetry Festival. And you are here this evening for a very special festival edition of our monthly Phosphorescence Contemporary Poetry Series. So we began this program actually during the pandemic as a way of reaching out and finding our constituents all around the world and getting to work with some really, truly amazing poets. And we found that it was a joy and one that we had to continue even after the pandemic ended and we all kind of returned to the museum. So this series, the Phosphorescence series, is now in its fifth year. And we are still bringing you the most exciting contemporary poets that we know who have caught the spark of Emily Dickinson's own phosphorescent light. I have just a few notes for you before I turn this over to some other folks. One, I want to encourage you to use the chat feature in your Zoom app to share affirmations and encouragement for our poets tonight. And if you would like, you could start now by telling us where you are coming from. And I see we have Mexico and Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and we have some Connecticut folks and Kentucky and Alabama. Thanks, everyone. This is so great. Tonight's readings will be followed by a conversation. So we'll be looking for your questions in the typed Q&A feature, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. And we would love to be able to share your questions with these poets. And we're joined tonight by American Sign Language interpreter, Emily Phipps. I just want to say thank you, Emily, for being here with us. Now here to moderate the conversation that will follow the readings is Stephanie Choi. So let me bring up Stephanie for you. Here we go. Oh, actually, I'm going to add a pin to you. There we are. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie's poems appear in Beloit Poetry Journal, Blackbird, Copper Nickel, Electric Literature, New Ohio Review, and elsewhere. Her debut collection, The Langus Noi, was selected by Brenda Shaughnessy for the 2023 Iowa Poetry Prize and published in 2024. She was the 2023 to 24 Poet in Residence at Sewanee, the University of the South, and one of Poets and Writers Magazine's debut poets of 2024. She is an assistant professor at Oklahoma State University, where she teaches creative writing in the undergraduate and graduate levels. And furthermore, I want to offer a very special note of gratitude to Stephanie, who was herself a featured phosphorescence poet in this series last year, and who then helped us to adjudicate this year's series, which has been one of our most memorable years yet. And we really appreciate you, Stephanie. So now I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce tonight's poets.
Yay, exciting. Thank you, Brooke. And thank you to everyone for being here tonight from all over the world. I am here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Exciting times where it's still 90 degrees. So it is my honor, though, to return to the series as moderator and my delight to introduce our illustrious readers tonight. Deaf genderqueer poet Meg Day is the author of Last Psalm at Sea Level, winner of the Publishing Triangle's Audre Lorde Award, and a finalist for the 2016 Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and the co-editor of Laura Hershey on the Life and Work of an American Master. The 2015-2016 recipient of the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Scholarship, and a 2013 recipient of an NEA Fellowship in Poetry. Day's work can be found in or forthcoming from Best American Poetry, the New York Times, Poetry Magazine, and elsewhere. Day is the 2024 Guggenheim Poet in Residence and an assistant professor of English and creative writing in the MFA program at North Carolina State. Livia Meneghin is the author of Honey in My Hair and Feathering. She's been awarded recognition from the Academy of American Poets, Breakwater Review's Pesoroff Prize, the Room's Poetry Contest, the Writers' Room of Boston, and elsewhere. Homes where you can find her work include CV2, Gasher, Mom Egg Review, Osmosis, and Thrush. Since earning her MFA, she teaches college literature and writing and is the Reads editor at Sundress Publications. She is a cancer survivor. Poet, memoirist, and translator Rajiv Mohabir is the author of 4 books of poetry, including Cutlish, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award and recipient of the Eric Hoffer Medal Provocateur. His poetry and nonfiction have been finalists for the 2022 PEN America Open Book Award, the Lambda Literary Award in Poetry and Nonfiction, the Randy Schultz Award for Gay Nonfiction, and both second place and finalists for the Guyana Prize for Literature in 2022, poetry and memoir, respectively. His translations have won the Harold Morton Landon Translation Award from the Academy of American Poets in 2020. Whale Aria is his 4th collection of poetry, and currently he is an assistant professor of poetry at the University of Colorado Boulder. With that, please sit back and enjoy the readings.
I think that's me. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for being here out in Zoom land this evening, this afternoon, wherever it is that your particular geography sets you. And thank you to the Dickinson Museum for hosting us, to Stephanie, and to Brooke and to Livia for gathering us together, and Rajiv. It's an honor to read with y'all tonight. Um, my reading tonight will be, it's a little, I don't want to tell you this, a little all over the place because I don't want to worry you. I feel very in control. But I've struggled a little bit lately with the state of the world, etc. And to find ways to put my queer poems and my trans poems and my deaf poems and my Bible poems and my cowboy poems all in one place in a meaningful way. And so I'm going to read a little bit from each tonight as a way of sort of clearing the floor for what else my comrades will bring you, and look forward to the conversation that we get to have a little bit later on. I'm just so lucky to be among you tonight, so thank you. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Portrait of My Gender as Inaudible, and it's not a new poem. It's a poem I've read in a lot of places, but I want to start with it tonight in part because it was recently included in the Academy of American Poets Dear Poets project, where young folks across the country all summer get to read this handful of poems, or watch these poems, and then they write these letters to us, the poets, asking questions and telling us things that are on their minds. And I've just been kind of overcome as I've been through my own trying season this summer with how many young folks are worried, how many young folks are scared, are wanting reassurance and company and proof of a future. Um, so many letters about this poem say, I didn't know there was a way to be me in the world. Uh, and now I do. And I wish for all of us proof of self, proof of love and value and a future without harm. And I hope that our poems do their part in bringing that to fruition. This is Portrait of My Gender as Inaudible. I knew I was a god when you could not agree on my name, and still none you spoke could force me to listen closer. Is this the nothing the antelope felt when Adam, lit on his own entitling, dubbed family, genus, species? So many descendants became doctors, delivered babies, bestowed bodies names as if to say it is to make it so. Can it be a comfort between us, the fact of my creation? I was made in the image of a thing without an image, and silence too is your invention. Who prays for a God except to appear with answers, but never a body, a voice? If I told you, you wouldn't believe me because I was the one to say it. On the first day, there was no sound worth mentioning. If I too am a conductor of air, the only praise I know is in stereo. An open hand and closed fist will have to do. I made a photograph of my name. There was a shadow in a field, and I put my shadow in it. You can't hear me, but I'm there. The next two poems that I want to read are part of a series that sort of interrogates many things simultaneously, but two main things. One, sort of like the rurality and the cowboy nature of growing up queer in the American West, and then also the simultaneity of the kinds of sacrifices maybe we have to make of ourselves as we try to fit into the language or the models that have been provided for us. And so this first poem, Summer Customs, is very much about like the way that we have to move covertly in the world and those private moments where things become more clear. And the second poem, The Only Thing Different, is a poem about sort of bending to the situation at hand and trying to find ways forward inside of that. Summer Customs. It would be easy to assume we made that bed as one, collided with each other and then the earth, gravity allayed by limb and sheaf before the stringlet revelry had undone all reverie the dark endorsed. Each time you raised your glass or gaze, I failed to keep my blush contained, and who could blame attending eyes for knowing what we've known? But the truth is, I've remained enough trouble on my own. Tonight, I went sowing nothing but myself, stalked my moon shadow into a rush of wheat, shedding chambray, then handkerchief, and folded down those stalks of bittersweet to learn the hush the plowboys know, sweat slick and shirtless beside unloaded sheaves of gold. I made that nest alone. Felt the evening dip its breeze from collarbone to sternum's heat and whip each blonde spine of slivered ears along my Levi's coated thick with dust and up my torso's surreptitious pale flush until the grief of dawn was on my chest and I smoldered back into each sleeve. Then to the irrigation road grown lush with light from the barn's festivities. Barely in my clothing when you intercepted me in the yield. And now I've trained my eye on the buried bruise your denim collar keeps exposing. Some other pair might demand excuse or expect it be explained, but my two hands open now, and you take them, unafraid. We both know the toll of keeping private what's begun in other fields, haylofts, stables, pickup beds, and it gets paid publicly. So elsewhere, what's done is finally, finally done. The only thing different. The bar is real, and I am a dream inside it. 5 pocket bent over a pool cue and remade in jukebox neon. Country's only clock anthem still parting the lips of the bouncer as he got my picture and you got me into the cab of the Chevy. Pearl snaps over binder and hips bridled under button flies. You're asking my only anaphora and my felt sense, forgive me, as hard as you'll have it. I know better than to trust what daybreak claims. All angles now in buttered light, though no recollection of what name you used to conjure me from sleep so deep I might as well be reborn. This is not my bed any more than it is my body. In the right light, I can be anyone you want. It's morning now. and the only man in the house is in the mirror. My hands slip through his corn silk hair. He turns to find you stirring your coffee, staring back with nothing but my Stetson and the glow of the radio on. Come here, cowboy. And everyone in the room rises at once. I'm going to read two more poems, and one's a chunky one, and one's very slender. And the thicker poem is a bit of a prose poem, and it's part of a series about Lot's wife. And if you know the story, the biblical story of Lot's wife, as they're fleeing the area, I won't go into it. She's been instructed not to turn around, and she looks back and turns into a pile of salt. And of course, there are a variety of takes on this poem and what it means and how to interpret it, etc. This is mine. The series, all of the series takes place in a courtroom. Um, but I'll just read one tonight. Y'all are being very kind in the chat. I'm so glad you're here. This is called Lot's Wife Takes the Stand. Who among us hasn't dreamt of angels? As a child, I knew my desire was divine, deific in its discernment. I was blessed with a thirst for paradise in any permutation. Halos hung heavy in harness, hooped at Corona's base or on belt loop, held at Plender Gap and hemmed through septum, flagging for me. Unearthly, otherworldly. Fallen too, to some, I suppose, but there are other ways of saying you've never done service work. I didn't dream our promised land, but I would have emptied my pockets to keep asleep if I had. Less landscape, more destination, and so many attractions. P-Town or Reese, El Rio, Fire Island or Dinah Shore, Pulse, Club Q, the Lex, your living room, the place you lay your head. Who among those throngs isn't angelic? Didn't descend from some heaven into glitter and go-go boots, voguing for top surgery funds or free will, bare chest and bare ass on the beach like an invitation to genuflect in ecstasy at the altar of the only heaven-sent souvenir, choice. So I got a little shine on me. So I saw how beautifully I'd been made. Became my brother's keeper. Wallflowers, cage dancers, floral-skirted librarians, soft packing more than paperbacks, and silver studs tracking foxed femmes to the edge of the dance floor, disco ball confetti scattered all around them in their hot pursuit. What wasn't already aflame? Our glow could be seen for miles. And if you didn't know how sweet the light, I can imagine the heat felt fearsome. But isn't that love? Surely it is faith. So I ask you again, who among us hasn't dreamt of angels? Moved magnetic toward brown eyes from across the bar? Felt some thrill of survival's pride despite the banks and beer that sponsored all those balloons, that big brass band? Who hasn't felt in someone else's arms the hand of God upon them? And all the while, some voice, a pulpit, or a politician, a promise from a prayer or parent, or worse, a prophecy delivered by one of our own, plugging that warning pledge, we are going to destroy you. And when it finally happens, the way I think most of us are always on the edge of expecting, weighing as worth it, but can't quite look at straight on. When it's fist to face or rock to skull, when the shots ring out and we can't tell what is bullet or what is base, black 8-ball or the bent back arms up, eyes closed beat of living, finally living, levitating even, finally free, like maybe we got wings or something. Wouldn't you look back, reach back as you ran? And the poem that I'll close out with tonight is a love poem, and it makes me very sad and very happy that I'm alive. 10 a.m. is when you come to me. In some other life, I can hear you breathing, a pale sound, like running fingers through tangled hair. I dreamt again of swimming in the quarry and surfaced here when you called for me in a voice only my sleeping self could know. Now the dapple of the aspen respires on the wool, and the shades cut its song a staff of light. Leave me, that me, in bed with the woman who said all the sounds for pleasure were made with vowels I couldn't hear. Keep me instead with this small sun that sips at the sky blue hem of our sheets, then dips and reappears, a drowsy penny in the belt of Venus, your oriole nodding slow and copper as it bobs against cotton in cornflower or clay. What a waste the groan of the mattress must be. When you backstroke into me and pull the night up over our heads, your eyes are two moons I float beneath. And my lungs fill with a wet hum, your hips return. It's Sunday, or so you say, with both hands on my chest. And hot breath is the only hymn whose refrain we can recall. And then you reach for me like I could have been another man. You make me sing without a sound. Thank y'all so much.
Wow. I'm still stunned on the idea of you said on the edge of expecting the rain is worth it. I wrote that down on my little notes. I'm like kind of nervous. I don't know. I feel I'm excited. I'm mostly feeling gratitude because Meg and Rajiv are not only stellar poets, but um two people who've really shaped who I am as a poet, who've encouraged me, who've kind of helped me or modeled for me like what it means to be yourself as a person and a poet. And I'm just so grateful to know them and that they were on board for joining. I'm so happy there are so many people here. I'm really grateful to the Emily Dickinson Museum, Stephanie and Brooke for Emily. Just like endless, endless gratitude. My friend asked me earlier today, we were stressed about the world, and she's, what's giving you hope right now? And it's you all. So like truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here and choosing poetry tonight. Um, I do like to chat a lot in between my poems, but I'll be good on time. I have 5 poems as well. Self-portrait in progress. I greet myself because I don't know the ceremonies of the people I came from. I'm stuck in a language stagnant with nouns spread by colonizers to this territory, listed on my blue passport as where I'm from, which is where I wasn't born. I don't know my father anymore, only that he paints in Rhode Island, owns a dog, misses me more than I miss him. I only go to church to ask for prayers when there's a growth in my throat, or for my grandmother's funeral, where my fucking family gave me fucking COVID because they wouldn't get the fucking vaccine, and I couldn't be a pallbearer because of my sex. They didn't even know my sexuality. Don't I look like I know God? Don't I act like I have angels instead of ghosts? I don't know the people I came from because they don't know me. I'd rather kiss my beloved's legs, arms, neck, lips all morning in our shared bed, and search for starlings on the mystic, and go to therapy than inherit the histories of men shouting at women, of the woman who sits silently, taking it to her God every night, starting each new day, preparing him breakfast. The next 2 poems I'll read I chose because they shout out Emily Dickinson. I had to include them in the lineup tonight. This first one does require a bit of context, so I will provide some background information. Um, the title is Questions for Anita Garibaldi. Anita Garibaldi is Giuseppe Garibaldi's wife. Giuseppe Garibaldi essentially helped found Italy as a country where I'm from. And the story is when they met, he just said, Deve essere mia, you have to be mine. And that's like how they fell in love. And I think that's a really creepy story. I don't find that romantic at all. But, and then the other context is um, there's an Italian poet, Eugenio Montale from Liguria, where I'm from, and he had an affair with a woman for a very long time. And in his poems, he called her La Mosca or the fly, which I don't find romantic at all as a nickname. So there's some context for you here. I'll start with a quote by Jenny Odell. Rerouting and deepening one's attention to place will likely lead to awareness of one's participation in history and in a more than human community. So, questions for Anita Garibaldi. Did you ever recognize you were in an emergency? Were you ever free? Why is it, do you think, that men feel they must conquer? Why is there no ask of consent? My father said to me without words, I can go, but you must stay mine. He left before I could ask why. Can naming and violence be one and the same? Can a poem about climate catastrophe be a poem about colonization, and a poem about naming, and a poem deep-seated in patriarchy, and a poem about becoming who you want to be, about reclaiming your home and leaving behind what no longer nourishes you? Eugenio called Drusilla a fly. Do you ever miss Brazil, Manuel, for whatever reason? Do you know you are bronze, 4.5 meters tall on a horse, carrying your child in one hand and a pistol in another? You are frozen in Rome because Mussolini admired you. Do you ever want to ride away? Do you feel like a man when you wear pants, the way Emily Dickinson bearded herself in her poetry, envied the loaded gun? Or were they simply more comfortable for mounting a horse, a revolution? I first learned your name from La Passeggiata Anita Garibaldi. In June of 1945, they put you in Nervi along the coast. Do you know? You are Ana Maria de Jesus Ribeiro. I want you to see your name is not just under my feet. A meandering on queerness. I told a friend I collected rocks, shells, and sand as a child. He, a gay man, replied with a laugh. No wonder you're gay. I wanted to tell him I actually consider myself queer and not gay, but maybe that difference doesn't mean anything to him. I've only known this about myself in my late 20s, or since my late 20s now that I'm in my 30s. But for me, queer is the only word that fits. Still, I didn't say anything to him in reply. Recently, I've been preoccupied with how I used to hide by changing pronouns in my poems, especially when sharing them with my grandmother. She would have been 99 on Monday. She loved me, but she loved me, but she never knew. Yesterday, I taught my college students that Emily Dickinson often changed the pronouns in her poems. They read her letters to Susan Gilbert and said, "It's obvious she's queer, and of course she's a lesbian." I envy their blatant acceptance. I didn't say they were wrong, and in many ways they weren't. But what's clear to others and what's true aren't always the same. According to Ojibwe grammar, nouns are animate or inanimate, not feminine or masculine, as with many European languages, like my native Italian. For the Anishinaabe, rocks are alive. I gifted my grandmother plenty throughout my childhood, also bird feathers, dandelions, and once a white cabbage butterfly. She never knew about me, not fully, but when I presented at the tiny creature, its wings pinched between my powdered fingertips and its unmoving body cupped in my other palm, she told me, "Let it go. Once you pin its wings, it can no longer fly." These last two poems, as the bio for this night, that's the theme for this bio, talking about risk and relief, moving towards relief, because I wanted to provide some, hopefully some relief, or remind myself that I have felt relief before. Sometimes I don't feel it. This poem is called Relief. Relief is knowing in my body that I am in my body and connected to time. At one point, I can be downtown and underground, standing on a crowded train platform, wearing a mask that gives me acne but protects my future. And at another, I can be swimming with a friend in the Dorchester YMCA. I can be here or elsewhere or in the same place again, but I'm the one who's different. When I walk my second lap around the reservoir in Middlesex Fells, the sun is lower in the sky, just visible through November bare sugar maples, and the increased blood flow to my heart causes my hands to become cooler, which causes the blood vessels there to open wide, so my hands are more swollen, and my face is pinker also because of blood. But I am still listening for nearby buffleheads or downy woodpeckers in the trees and still missing my grandmother, and still furious at people I cannot convince to care about people dying from genocide or a mutating virus. Perhaps in a million years, the water will be different, and my molecules will be different, and I cannot loop the lakes forever, but I will again tomorrow. My last poem is like a prose poem. It's kind of an imagining of the future. And I just want to again thank you all for listening, for choosing poetry tonight. And thank you, especially Meg and Rajiv, for your endless wisdom and goodness. I really wouldn't be here without either of you. What if tomorrow we had a picnic? We will bring fig jam, focaccia, strawberries, kettle corn, creamy brie, crackers with rosemary and salt. We will hold hands with our partners. We will remember umbrellas for the eventual sun shower. We will lay down blankets, not just the classic red and white checkered ones. We will remember other patterns like nautical navy blue stripes and purple tie-dye. We will reach into the sky and borrow clouds as cushions. Our picnic will be out in the open, an ocean-sized meadow to hold all the world's queerness, with ample room to share with cottontails and bluebirds, with ants and bumblebees. Did you know ants outnumber humans 2.5 million to 1? Did you know you won't have to hide anymore? Both the honey and the honeybee for us, we will say. Tomorrow all the bigots will evaporate, all the churches will crumble. All the stations spewing lies and hate will bloom whale songs and the shh of salt spray. All the cops will fall dead at our feet. Dawn's arrival will guarantee them gone, never to return, and we will stay for as long as we like. As for anyone neither here nor there, anyone still of bones and muscles, the heart being the most important one, but perhaps lacking in courage, people who do not shout but whisper, people who do not hit but glare, people who know our first names but prefer to carry on, ignoring us, even after asking who we are. brothers and teachers and mothers and commuters who always take the same bus as us, and neighbors and our children's friends' parents, and coaches and doctors. What if tomorrow we didn't worry? Their tongues and lips will be out of earshot at the picnic. Tomorrow we will all be poets since we already are. We will write on scraps of loose leaf with stubs of charcoal, and on each other's forearms with our index fingers. We will write by singing. The breeze will cradle our words and carry the sounds until they find violets twirling around petals of lavender and hyacinth too. We will gather green carnations and daisies using our memories instead of our fists. We will gift them to our crushes and lovers and partners by recalling their details, every texture, color, shape, and smell, often looking to our own bodies to illustrate meaning. Someone will remember us, we will say, even in another time, and how lucky we'll be to know more is waiting. Starting tomorrow, we will rest. Thank you so much.
Good evening and afternoon and morning. I am so honored to be here and to be basking in these wonderful poems. Thank you, Livia. Such wonderful work, and it's always so um, moving to hear your poems. And Meg, this has been so great to be in the same space as you. I think this is the first time that we are reading together, and what a joy. And thank you to Stephanie and Brooke for moderating and organizing, and also to the Emily Dickinson Museum. How wonderful to gather, with her name before us and on our lips. Um, I'm going to be reading a couple of poems or several poems from my new collection called Sea Beast. It just came out 3 days ago. So I'm excited to celebrate with you some of these poems. And one of the conventions of the book is that it is a bestiary of sea creatures that is arranged alphabetically. Each title of the poems in this collection correspond to one particular sea animal. I'm going to start with the Atlantic white-sided dolphin. I walked the curled fishhook of the cape into a cove and found washed up on a February shore the carcass, its gray whitened with bird shit, eyes missing, a new blowhole pecked into its skull. Did it ignore kin and pod, though they cried out in fall sun, come home, seeking instead a short-lived joy? I have taken this other world for my own, morphed into a haramkhor, eater of evil, who rips out pages of the creation story. Once, the sea was a sea of milk. Once, summer was a sea of men. I remember there was water until I drank, reckless, my beard soaked and dropping diamonds. After the beginning, a pause, the silence of winter ice, the silence of night meeting night. Um, in this collection, there are also ancestor whales or whales found in the fossil record. And this next poem is called Basilosaurus eh, cetoides. Excuse me. So Basilosaurus cetoides. The bones of this lizard king with external ears and tympanic bulla were so plentiful, Did my great-great-grandparents too use them as furniture in the 19th century while Britain continued to discover the rest of the globe? We were misnamed again and again. First Hindu, then Hindu, then Indian, then Coolie, all subhuman, much like this precursory cetacean of the Eocene, named in Latin great lizard, anguilliform. What to make of twist and tear, teeth gnashing sharks and durodons into pulp, judged by fossilized gouges in enamel and finger holes on skulls? My ex-husband's ancestors from northern Germany played flute bones for their dead at grave sites. Their descendants one day exhumed them in perfect pentatonic scales. In Boston, before he left me, his DNA results, a 5-note score against the bed frame, now just a recalled strain in the dark. What of my own ancestors can be revived? Another wastebasket taxon, as unnamed horde of no future. Everyone stops keeping notes. The next poem that I'm going to read is called Boto. And a Boto is an Amazon river dolphin. And there's stories in the Amazon basin of these particular riverine dolphins sometimes taking on human form to trick people into sleeping with them, to either uh, impregnate the human or to have their human dolphin bodies impregnated. And one of the things is that like my great great grandparents settled in the Amazon River basin. Boto. Pink skin abrasions form, excuse me, pink from skin abrasions. I'm just gonna have a drink of water. I'm gonna start this poem again. Excuse me. The spirit of the Boto is a trickster, so this makes a whole lot of sense. Pink from skin abrasions. The Boto lives in the Orinoco River. Largest of the river dolphins, sexually dimorphic, more than any other cetacean species. Its cervical vertebrae are not fused, which allows the head a 90-degree pivot. Its skull is asymmetrical. Its beak is long, with heterodont teeth, conical for grabbing piranhas, turtles, and crabs, and also teeth for crushing prey. Unlike the Platanista, the Boto River dolphin's eyesight is remarkable both underwater and from above the surface, yet it relies on biosonar for understanding its relation to the riverbed, fallen trees, prey schools, and other Botos. In human form, skin still pink, I hide my blowhole under my beanie and go to charm another human mate. I've stopped singing in public restrooms after doctors reset my broken and rebroken nose. After echoing, swim this stream, my asymmetrical face still grabbing at men on the E-train. I have two poems that I'm going to read remaining. And uh, I think that I've been considering lately how scary it is to continue to speak truth, and speaking truth to power, especially in our days of being hunted for our beliefs that we carry around in our queer and brown bodies. And I think about the ways and the many different types of naming that we kind of survive against and live through and cultivate of our own. And I think about like scientific names for animals too, as being kind of like this mantle of a colonizing body. What do the animals call themselves is something that I often wonder in this collection. This poem is called Humpback Whale. Holy men gossip folk tales into religious texts. We are immersed in the most ancient of songs. Ear to hull, the sea tongue lashes rope and wind. How, with a push of rostrum, the whale guides others to safety. Now they say humpbacks are altruists, born of humanist theory. To know the whale, we must first name it. Speak our will into its flesh. Enumerate all the ways to kill. O great God, may you be saved from human language. Um, and I will end my reading tonight with the poem called Blue Whale. And it's really awesome to be here and to be amongst you all. Thank you for your attention and for listening. Blue whale. Earth's biggest animal shares its name with the mouse, which means their every note gives muscular song. Whales, a small notion, here weighing 170 tons, which means this moves you. This clay dome bears a sea of light where a simple pinprick and a nova burst, swallowing any shadow or chimera. It's pneumatically driven, membrane, vibrations oscillate, air from larynx to cranial sinuses to orchestrate a score. But why a joyful noise without phonic lips? The staff and ledger lines blank, free of treble. You are built for music, a viola strung with fiber and filament. It's how blue whales voice the loudest song, not from deep muscle, but from sliding breath. A second nature that echoes blues, grace noting from extinction to a choral body. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Oh, I feel like I need a moment. That was all so amazing. What a gift to be able to hear you all read. And hopefully you all were looking through the audience comments too before and after your readings. So I will let you all enlighten us for most of this conversation, but I thought I would just open it up for the audience and for you all. Livia, you mentioned kind of the theme of the reading as risk and relief, which I think is an excellent theme and really connects all of your work and connects your work to Dickinson's work too, and what she might provide for us. So I was thinking if you might want to illuminate more about how you think about risk and relief. I know it's specifically from a quote from a mycologist. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more and yeah, defining that or not defining that for all of you.
I'll just start. I have the book that my
Hmm.
Patricia's book, Forest Euphoria. I'll write it in the chat. It's so good. Um, the quote isn't from the book, but her writing is really beautiful. And Stephanie, I in the question you said, or not at the end, and I think that's kind of exactly it. Like, um, there's like risk in being authentic, and there's relief in being authentic. And then there's risk in not being authentic. And I don't know if there's relief in being not authentic. Maybe it's something else like safety or something, or quietude um, but I think they go hand in hand. I'm not a risk taker at all. Just in general. Um, we were doing a trivia night last night, and my partner and my team like bet all of our points for the last question, and I'm like, no, don't do it. And we lost, so we got it wrong. But it was fun. There's like a lightness in like that risk and taking it and going for it. Um, so that's just like my initial response to your question. And this can be about anything that you feel authentic to you. It doesn't have to be queerness, but queerness is so special to me, or it has been, even though I'm late to the party, is because it just means possibility. Like queerness just means not what's expected or normal. That's why I personally like that word best. Um, so there's risk in just that word because it could mean anything. It could mean anything you want. And I actually talked with my students today about Dickinson, and we had a long conversation about this group was good this semester. They were a little bit more, oh, well, was she? Or should we even be talking about what her sexuality is? Does that even matter? And I don't know. I love I think the word possibility is the bridge between risk and relief for me. You take a gamble in order to hope something better will come, and then that is also a place of relief or a hope. So that's my elaboration on the theme.
Amazing. Thank you. I think you risk a lot, Livia, especially in your work. So yeah, Rajiv or Meg, do you have any thoughts or anything to add on what risk and relief? Yeah, and specifically Rajiv, the idea, speaking in an age of being hunted, I really thought about risk, right? And what we do as poets. And Meg, when you're thinking about the responses to your poem on Academy American Poets, right? The risk of that, but also again the relief that it brings, right, to the readers and the responses that you got and the need for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll add to Livia's really insightful and powerful comments, which I would align myself with. That I feel this, I feel it every day in my life, but less so than when I was younger. And more so now, obviously, in the classroom, right? Like
Mm.
when I talk to my students about things that are true, but perhaps that people are not excited that are true, right? I mean, I think like bringing up the queerness of Emily Dickinson is like a different kind of it's a different kind of risk and relief even than bringing up the queerness of like Langston Hughes, right?
Mm.
And like talking about these poets who have become kind of like steadfast, stalwart sort of benchmarks and yeah, like they have lineages of their own that folks have sort of like built behind them that get upset. The
Mm.
comfort of the thing becomes difficult for some people. And I notice frequently how um, interrupting or disrupting the expectations in those moments are, it's not just like satisfying for students to like put pieces together, but also it allows them, regardless of who they are or how they identify, to have some ownership over the thing, right? Like to engage with poets and to engage the world in a different way and know like not so much in like a we contain multitudes kind of way, but more so in a like I don't have to represent um everything about me in every poem, or I can rely on myself as an interpretive conduit to communicate, nuances and like the tiny sparkle dust of something that is true about me without stating it outright. Um,
Mm,
I think there's a lot of power in that and a lot of relief in the risk of, as you're saying, Livia, both being overt about something and then also protecting one's privacy, whether it's in pursuit or of safety or not.
mm,
But I think poems are a really good place to do that. They're
mm,
very handy in
mm,
that way.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I love both of I love what you have both said about this and how in a poem it's kind of like there's a let's call it a permeable membrane or a very queer membrane as to what the truth compact can be between poet and writer in terms of how we embody subject position, what assemblages of identity we can pick up and put down, and what where that can lead not just the reader but also ourselves when we're considering issues or how much of ourselves to lay bare on the page. And I think about that a lot. And especially now, kind of like the risk of the poem living in the world, like, and I'm talking quite specifically about the political risk.
Mm,
But then also like the kind of internal risk of writing the poem and then seeing yourself through the mirror of that poem, which also can be pretty risky.
mhm.
But also, what a relief.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are a lot of questions now in the Q&A, so I'll try to get to some of them. Maybe the first one, there's a question about poets that inform your writing, which I think might be nice to think about just as we've kind of been thinking about ancestors, right, and lineages. And work, and Dickinson is one of those. So, if Dickinson is an ancestor for you, how, and then, other influences too. I'm especially thinking about that word, assemblage. I was actually thinking about that as you all were reading too. So it's so funny that you said that, Rajiv. So, kind of thinking about our work, right, as an assemblage of poets that have influenced us.
So the poet that I mentioned earlier, Eugenio Montale, I can write it, Italian name. Uh, he, thanks, Emily, you're doing great. He, I he's from Liguria, he's from Genova, I'm from Genova. And so when I first learned about him a few years ago, I worked at an Italian bookstore. I said, wow, like this is like a poetic ancestor, or this is someone I can learn about, and um, maybe there's connections, or I could go to his, I don't know, go visit, something, I don't know. And then I'm like reading about him and I'm learning about him and I'm like, do I love this guy? Like I don't know. He like straight up had like an affair for most of his marriage. He often um like stole the work of his lovers and like said, "Oh, this is my poetry." And like his lovers were also writers. Um like Drusilla, who I mentioned, is a writer, but when I look her up, I don't find anything, right? So I why do some people get their story carried on and why don't other people? So that's a different topic, but so he was someone who I was like hoping would inform my work and is, but like in a very different way than I set out to, like a very specific project I worked on this summer about um my relationship to my homeland, which is very strained and dare I say like hanging on a thread. Um so, to answer the question that is written here, poets that inform my writing, often that is, um, I would more quickly say, not the person who shares that homeland and that demographic, unfortunately for me, but I would say people like June Jordan, Natalie Diaz, um, Rajiv and Meg, like these just people who are just Lucille Clifton, Joy Harjo, even. Yeah, I would like list more people like that, if I would say people who inform my writing, and also my partner's writing, which I really adore and respect a lot. So those would be my quicker answers.
Go ahead, Rajiv.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll say, you know, the the ways that things influence my poetry are, through the subtle soul body, like the vibrations of the things around, that I don't always know. Carl Phillips in his Craft is by Trade has this essay that kind of talks about this, like how every like minuscule thing that we encounter somehow finds its way affect our worldviews and what we see and what we write. So there's so much music and art that like I feel like I'm exposed to that really kind of sings to me. Um, you know, but as far as like language manipulation on the page goes, um, you know, people like Kamiko Han, Aga Shahid Ali also is really important to me. Mina Alexander, excuse me, Haunani K. Trask, and then, Essex Hemphill and Audre Lorde are also really big influences for me.
Yeah, the thing that I would say about it is like I'm thinking about people who've really influenced my writing mostly inside of like queer community, deaf and disabled community, and then folks, as both of you are mentioning, who move in circles where they're doing something. I wouldn't necessarily call it like outsider poetics, but like they're doing something with their work that is perhaps not a part of a more mainstream conversation, or it is in addition to a kind of value added. Um, and I'm thinking about like Suhair Hamad, and I'm thinking about Leah Lakshmi. I'm thinking about folks that I was reading, June Jordan for sure, Audre Lorde coming up, but mostly a lot of deaf poets. Ella Mae Lentz, Patrick Graybill, Clayton Valley, Bernard Bragg, Terry Lean, like, all of these deaf poets that really helped me cross a line into understanding sort of Rajiv, what you were saying, like how we move from experiencing something in the world that we find moving or inspiring or punctum penetrating in some way, um, to actually committing to language as like the art that we're going to pursue. Lately, I find myself far more moved by like solitude. Far more I have a 4-year-old, so like I'm very affected by like stillness. And yeah, sort of the quietude of being alone and how rare that is. Um, and figuring out with models and examples, lineage, how to pull that sort of revelry or resonance into conversation with what is a really, I think, difficult, chaotic, quite frankly, horrifying time. Um, so I'm grateful for those models and for like kin, right? To be in conversation with folks that are also trying to figure out how to be not just people, but makers, like the deep poesis of the thing. I think is difficult.
Yeah, spaces like this definitely make it easier. I think I'm very grateful for you all. And I think I might go to this question about space in our Q&A, playing off the Patricia Onanawu Kaishian quote. Could you share a favorite physical space between that nourishes you, whether through risk, relief, or both? Could be a space between you like to be in or somewhere you like to write about.
I like times of day and also weather. I think neither of these are places in the way that perhaps it
Mhm.
is meant, but I think a lot about both gender and poetics happening in the sort of crepuscular space of dawn and
Mm.
dusk. And I also quite like or find, I don't know, productive, find industrious the sensation of like incoming weather, oncoming weather, um, but not the weather itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
My first instinct to answer this question is I adore the coastline, because it is in between like land and sea or land and water. And a number of writers that I really admire write about this. Adrienne Rich, um, I heard Chen Chen talk about it in Provincetown a few summers ago, um, and how it's kind of this both and space. There's bird. I love an off-season beach. There's quiet, there's birds, there's crabs, there's hermit crab, there's shells, there's sound. It's loud, it's quiet, it's land, it's sea, it's wet, it's dry. It's just both and everything at the same time. And it's also a space of um uh enforced borders, right? The edges of a country. So people can take advantage of that space. But I have mostly found it to be a space of relief, and it can be dangerous. Um, Stepping on a shore can be dangerous for some people if other people make that so. Or just by the a tide can be dangerous physically. So I've been fortunate not to experience that risk, but it's been mostly relief for me on a coastline.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I was putting together my first and second books of poetry, I would find that like during summer months, I would be at my mom's house in Central Florida, and it was like a way for me to be um uh both at home to make my mother happy, as well as absent enough spiritually that I could like do something for me. And I found that to be like a really great place, an interplace where, you know, in my family, we're never really adults. Uh, we are the children, always we exist in relationship that way. And it's a place where I found ordering the manuscript was kind of perfect. But I really like what Livia said about being at coasts. I mean, there's something really majestic about the ocean and being close to it and experiencing it, and definitely an off-season beach, kind of transformative in thinking and all of that. So I like this.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Meg, I think in one of your poems you mentioned P-Town, Provincetown, and every time I think of an off-season beach, I think of Provincetown or the Cape in winter. It's very, yeah, sublime.
Can I add quickly that
Mhm.
one of my, because we're talking about Massachusetts beaches, one of my favorite beaches is Plum Island, because during what is called the season or the summer, the beach is for the birds, because
Mm.
it's the Mass Audubon. It's like a reservation, a conservation, excuse me. So, but off season for humans, right? Winter, it's for humans, and on season, it's for the birds. And I just like I adore that so much. Another in betweenness.
Mm.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. Okay. Okay, I think one question in the chat that might be interesting to think about. When did you feel you first really found your own voice, poetic voice, I guess, writer voice? Or did you always have it? I guess, how did you develop? And this maybe connects to through thinking about, our influences and, being in the world and yeah, yeah, kind of how you developed as the writer you are on the page.
Yeah, I thank you for this question. I think of like my voices changing from
Mm,
collection to collection, and I
mm,
find that like um, when my voice changes, that's when I know that a certain poetic project or
mm,
book or moment for me is different is has ended, and that I'm moving into something else. And I think that it's a stepping out of my own way and learning how to trust myself in the poem is a negotiation that I make kind of every time I sit down to write a poem. So I'm not sure there's a voice capital V that
mm.
doesn't change for me, but I know that people have that belief for themselves. And my voice is maybe a little bit more slippery, a little queer.
I love that.
Um, I think as queer folks, we are asked to trust our voice. I don't know if it's earlier, but certainly more often. Um, and I don't mean to generalize experience at all. And if you don't, trust your own queer voice just yet, it's coming. Don't worry. But I do feel like when I arrived at poems, it was a kind of relief of like, oh,
Mm,
this is where I can be honest and authentic, and um, nobody can do anything about it. And so it really did feel like a kind of process of exhaling or a process of I don't know, I think about it sometimes as like when you like fix a horse to halter, right? Like you break a horse. Like the verb is like it's always I've always felt moved or struck by that verb to break a horse. And whatever the opposite or the undoing of that is how coming into poems felt for me like, oh, I there's so much more freedom here. There's so much, it was liberatory. I think that's part of what I'm trying to say.
mm,
And also when it is that one, I don't know, removes that halter, removes that bit in your mouth, you can sometimes see more clearly who put it there. And that also shaped my voice because there was something, someone, many someones to talk back to for the first
mm,
time, which took some time to learn and to feel confident doing. But uh, it was less about finding my voice with poems than finding that poems allowed me, the space to express what was, I guess, already there. Um, And in that way, it's like when people are like, "Oh, the poetry saved my life," like that's the moment I believe it, right? Where I'm like, yeah, that's a powerful thing to
mm,
let somebody their autonomy, their humanity, their personhood. Um, so I don't know that it was at like a time or a place or an avenue for me so much as like um, poetry became the place that I could practice myself.
Thank you, Meg, because I've been initial reaction to this question was almost quite literal. I was gonna say, "Oh, I loved science and math. I didn't really like writing as a kid, and th this year when I was 20, whatever, this date." Um, but I'd have to say that um, I'm still finding my voice. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's gonna always change to Rajiv's point.
Mm.
Um, but the poems I feel most proud of feel the most authentic to me, as in I'm the only person who could write them. And that is like the closest that I can come to my poetic voice. And that has mostly happened for me personally after having cancer and after like being able to call myself queer. Other things happened in my life as well. I lost people, I gained people in my life. Um, but it's really like a personal milestone and not a poetic. It's not like, oh, when I published my first chapbook, that's when it's not an academic milestone. It's not a career writerly milestone. It's more of like a personal when certain things clicked or I had to face losing something, an organ in my body, um, a person, or when like beautiful people have come into my life. Um, that's like when I feel the most brave, and that's when I feel like I have the most authentic voice to offer. Um, and I've said it 1,000 times, I won't keep embarrassing them, but Rajiv and Meg were a big part of that. Um, so since knowing them.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you all. Yeah, we have time for a couple more quiet. How are you all doing? Are you all good? Good. Um, I think there was a little bit of discussion in the chat, too, about research. Oh, when you were talking about Eugenio, is that, yeah, Eugenio? Sometimes when you research, you realize, what you don't want to write about. And then there's a question in the chat too about research, specifically for Rajiv or anyone, all of you, thinking about your latest collection, Rajiv Sea Beast, and the research you might have done for that, which was fast. I learned so much about sea animals already just in those few poems. So yeah, kind of thinking about the research process. I mean, I think even just like reading, right? Reading other poets, collecting our influences, and yeah, reading widely is kind of research, but direct research about specific topics, maybe. How have you all thought about that or navigated that in your work?
Yeah, I'll hop in real quick. When it comes to writing Sea Beast and the book right before it, Whale Aria, I did a lot of research into the a natural history of whales on our planet, and
Mm.
looked also at scientific journal articles and news articles to mine for information and facts. And there are a lot of books that I read as well. I also spent a lot of time on the water, observing whales firsthand. So I wanted to gain that kind of experiential knowledge also. What it meant for me to interact with, human cultures around whales was also an important part of that. I was lucky enough to receive funding to kind of travel with the North Pacific humpback whale subpopulation that moved from Hawaii up to Juneau, Alaska. And you know, this has all been the different kinds of research as far as content goes. There's also the research that I do in thinking about how contemporary and past poets handle writing the natural world and what that means for them and what that means for me in terms of poetic genealogies and what I want my interventions to be, not as intervention, but rather like how would it be for me to articulate this kind of fact and how do I relate it to myself as observer. And so this is also the kind of theoretical research that I did when thinking about how exactly to tackle this feat of writing about these animals that have been exploited and exploited and exploited again.
I want to echo like personal research as research, which Rajiv spoke to a little bit, but like oh, it's such a gift to speak to your elders. Like, please, like, call your grandparents. Please ask questions. What was it like when I wasn't around, or what was I like before I could really understand myself? Or just access to relatives through the ones you have, or neighbors, or community members that you have, is so crucial again for that knowing yourself, even if it doesn't make it in the poem. It's a way to get to know yourself, and that is going to work towards your authentic voice. Um, so I do want to like highlight that as research, and even asking yourself questions. Um, have a therapist. Oh, like, how do I really feel about this? How do I really feel about this person? Whatever, my dad leaving me, whatever, I'll say that. But no, and you know, Tracy K. Smith, the poet I also admire, wrote this essay on prose and poetry, and she says prose is nosy, and she doesn't really say poetry is nosy, but like nosy poetry is really good, at least in the drafting process. Like, be nosy to yourself. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself, well, what don't you remember? Okay, well, why don't you remember that? Where was your focus on? So just being nosy with yourself is also research. Just take it, ask that why, that extra step, um, aside from going to libraries and doing archival research. That's all wonderful and beautiful too, but yeah.
And I would just add that so many of us are not taught our own histories. And I mean, we're staring down the barrel of like another generation that's not going to know anything about how this country was built or sort of the horrors of the thing. But specific to like identity, specific to one's personal lineage, historical, cultural, etc. I have had to do so much research about what it means to be, an oralized deaf person in this country, or what it means to be a queer trans person in this country. Um, and like I'm from California. It's not like I grew up somewhere where like there was an inordinate amount of like suppression of information. It's just so thoroughly erased and socialized out of us, um, that it's a good idea to like, you know, Wikipedia things and talk to people that are, like go down that Wikipedia black hole, be a little rabbit that follows its nose, and yeah, talk to one another, ask people what they remember, and then when they don't remember things or they think that they don't, like become their comrade in the research of the thing. So many poems of mine have been born out of approaching someone who I think will have an answer, and the tension that develops around like, well, you don't know what happened. I wasn't alive, so I don't know what happened, and you didn't tell me what happened, but you were alive and you don't know what happened, right? Like, how can we resolve this sort of like generational willful ignorance, or otherwise, right? Uh, and I feel like that's an exciting way for poets to move forward, uh, especially in this moment, not just as archivists, right? We really, really need to know and remember what it's like to be alive in this moment, um, but also to seek out folks who, have written that very clearly or covertly. What is it like to be alive in a moment? History doesn't really record that all of the time, but we can look to poets, thankfully.
I think that's an amazing note to kind of end on. If everyone Yeah, if you have any last thoughts, I was going to ask maybe something there's so much awe, I think, in all of your work, as a speaker, right? Finding these moments of awe in the awful, and I was wondering if anyone wanted to share just what is bringing you awe or something that has brought you awe recently as the last thought before we all sign off.
Aw, so many, there's the word awesome, which just means like a lot of awe, and like awe can like span so many emotions. Um, but I'm always in awe of the turkeys that reside on the hill that I live on. Um, I'm just in awe of them as birds, and they look like dinosaurs, and they're massive, and they're slow, and they're just eating grass and small insects. And every day, I've lived here for a few years, I'm just very in awe of them.
I'm gonna jump in with birds as well. I've really been enjoying the magpies here in Colorado, and they're bringing me a lot of joy. Their shimmer, their language, everything. You know, there there's like this belief if you see a magpie, you totally bow to it in as a moment of in greeting, to protect yourself from being a jerk to the natural world around you, and I really love that.
I feel in awe of most things these days, but mostly of time. Um, I think often, what could I want for, but more time. I think about that a lot. And look at us using Zoom for good. Like this, I'm in awe of this. I'm in awe of the Zoom room being like such a connective enterprise. I'm so grateful to both of you, to all of you.
I am also in awe of all of you. This has just been the most wonderful time together. I want to thank you, Stephanie Choi, for your facilitation tonight. Thank you to this evening's poets, Livia Meneghin, Meg Day, Rajiv Mohabir. You have just lit up our worlds for the last hour and a half, and we will carry that with us for the rest of the festival and beyond, I'm sure. Thank you too to Emily Phipps, our ASL interpreter, and to you, our audience. I really hope that you will go online to read more of these poets' work. I'm going to put their links in the chat one more time. Let's see, grab them all here. There they are. Go learn more, go read more. And we hope that if you liked this reading, this is the final reading of the Phosphorescence Poetry Series of 2025. We're so grateful to all the poets who participated this year and to all of you who tuned in. We will be bringing you more next year. And if you yourself are a poet who's interested in participating, we will be releasing our call for proposals this winter for poets who would like to be considered for next year's series. And we would just love to hear from you. But lucky for us, the phosphorescence, the divine spark of this week doesn't really end here. We have Tell It Slant Poetry Festival events available to you live online or on site at the museum all the way through Sunday. Tune in for the Emily Dickinson Poetry Marathon, for workshops, for tomorrow's open mic night, and more. On Saturday, we will have National Book Award and MacArthur Award winner and MacArthur Genius grantee, Terrence Hayes. And award-winning poet Kristen Hill with us as our headliners, taking the stage for more reading and conversation under the big tent. So we hope to see you there in person or virtually. As always, if you enjoyed tonight and you feel compelled to make a donation, that's what allows us to keep bringing you events for free. We really appreciate you and your time, and I hope you all take good care of yourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you, poets. See you soon.